Hello, everyone, and welcome to the panel discussion session. So I'm very pleased to be joined by the three that you can see on screen at the moment. We have also got someone else, Georgie from DLA Piper, who's having a couple of technical issues, so may well join us. If a fourth person pops up, you will all know why. But the format of today is we're going to hear from the experiences of the currently three panelists on the call, hear a bit about their experiences within the legal profession and how they got to where they are today. I've got a few questions for them. It should last 15-20 minutes, but as we've seen previously as well, it'd be great to get some questions from yourselves. So I will be having one eye on the Q&A functionality. Get your questions in, whether it's more general about their experiences or specifically for them. And I'll ask the ones that have got the most votes. So I will start off with Miranda. Miranda, thank you for joining us. It'd be great to hear a little bit about yourself and how you've got to where you are today.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm Miranda. I just finished studying law, the LLB at Exeter. I then went on and did the vacation scheme at Clyde & Co in June and was fortunate to receive a training contract offer. I started applying for legal roles and little things in my first year. Like many people, I found it really difficult. I found that first step the hardest step. So if you're at that stage, it took me 6 months, and I think it is the hardest step on that ladder. But a little thing that you could do that I did recommend yesterday is do use the virtual experiences from Bright Network, and Clyde & Co does have one as well. And hopefully when courts open, do go get first-hand experience of that, because it's all useful to help evidence your motivations without actually having to get an application in. So that's me.
Thank you, Miranda. Welcome back. And yeah, the first step is often the hardest. So Miriam, we'll go over to you. If you could tell us a little bit about your experiences in the legal profession.
Definitely. Hello, everyone. My name is Miriam. I'm currently a student recruitment intern at the University of Law. I've just finished my LPC with an MSc in Law and Business Management at the University of Law itself. And I've taken this role kind of just to de-stress from all the studies, because I did my LLB and the LPC and the MSc back to back. So it was a lot. And I kind of made the mistake, which is my advice is don't overload training contract applications and vacation scheme applications, because that's what I did, and it ended up being kind of all rejections and then kind of a hatred of applications. So I went into the student recruitment route to kind of calm it down, and I'm now going back into it with paralegaling positions and kind of things that I actually enjoy, rather than kind of going and applying wherever I can find an application. So that's what I'm doing right now. It's been great because I can speak to loads of different students with different experiences and see different routes that people have managed to get in to the legal career. But I am going to get back out there and find a paralegaling position, hopefully very soon.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, doing all of that study and all the applications, it can really be so time consuming. It sounds like you've been through a lot. So looking forward to hearing more about the experiences that you've had. Looks like George has joined us, but Georgia, you can sit tight for a couple of seconds, and we're just doing some introductions, and I'll hand over to Sarah to talk a little bit about herself and her experiences.
Thanks, Ali. Hi, everyone, and thanks for having me. So I am a second seat trainee at Simmons & Simmons. I did my first seat in the corporate department, and I'm now in the employment group for my second seat, but I'll be moving to financial services funds for my third seat. Unlike the others, I didn't study law at undergraduate. I studied languages and politics, which was a 4-year course. And then I did the GDL to convert to law, and then the LPC. I was lucky enough to get the training contract with Simmons following a summer vacation scheme with them when I just finished my undergraduate. So got that and then went on to law school. But it's been an amazing experience so far. It's absolutely flown. I can't believe that I'm halfway through the training contract already. It feels like yesterday that I started uni. So it's been a bit of a wild ride, but really enjoying it and very happy to answer any questions that anybody has about applying or firm life or seats and things like that. And for anyone that didn't study law, isn't planning to study law at university, but is maybe thinking about converting afterwards, then very happy to answer any questions about that too.
Amazing. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, and it's always a good sign when time flies. shows you're enjoying yourself. And Georgie, thank you so much for your patience with us. So I think we're having some microphone issues, but I've seen your mute go off, which is a good sign. So thanks for joining us, Georgie.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can, yeah. Always there.
Sorry about that. Typical IT issues.
Typical IT issues. And always the fun of a live event is, until this exact moment, we didn't know whether we could hear you or not, but we can hear you loud and clear. Thank you for joining us. So everyone's just been introducing themselves. So yeah, George, it'd be great to hear a little bit about your experiences within the legal profession.
Yeah, so I am a second seat trainee at DLA Piper in their Manchester office. My route to law was that I did a 4-year degree at Surrey University, which included a placement year. The placement year was not in anything related to what DLA do. It was in family law, so it was quite different, and I got different experience there. I finished my degree. I went to do the vacation scheme at that point of finishing my degree, so I didn't have a training contract when I was completed. I got to the final year of uni. I did the vacation scheme. I was offered a training contract for 2 years later. I then went and did my LPC at the University of Law in Bristol. And then I also paralegaled at Freshfields in their Manchester office for a year. And then I joined DLA Piper in August, of which I've done 2 seats. So yeah, it's going well. And, more than happy to answer any questions that people have about the route into law that I had, the different experiences that I've had also in family law. So yeah, any questions, more than happy to help.
Thank you so much for the introductions, everyone. And it sounds like we've got a really good mix of people on the panel as well. So hopefully there is something here for everybody who's listening in. I can see the questions are coming through, and just as a reminder, I'll try and go to the ones that are most liked. But for our discussion part of it, I'm almost going to take people on a bit of a chronological journey. So starting from early experiences of law through to what the future might look like. So just alphabetical order. Georgie, and I know you've just been talking, and you're straight into the conversation. But do you want to talk through any early experiences, or was there ever a moment when you were like, I think the legal profession is for me?
So I had quite an odd experience of law. I actually did some work experience with a barrister in personal injury and clinical negligence, which was an odd one because she represented me when I had a car accident when I was a minor. So that was kind of my first experience of law, which was very different to being a barrister as it is being a solicitor. I also then got a job in an insurance company, and just so happened to started talking to one of the legal counsel there, and they offered me some experience in that. So kind of the door was opened there from actually just having a job in something that is completely unrelated to law. And then, like I said, I did my placement year, which was in family law, which again, I did from applying. My university do placement years. So it was just kind of, you went through the application process, various different places. Obviously you don't always get accepted, and it's not easy, but I did family law. It wasn't necessarily something I, knew whether I would or wouldn't want to do. And I think one of the best I had there was, it was completely different to anything I'm doing now, and I've learned a lot from it. So I think one of the key things I'd say is, no matter kind of what experience you get, whether that be legal, not legal, you can open doors, by people, or just get transferable skills as well. So I think it's really important to, value any experience you get in kind of any industry.
Yeah, a great story, and from an interesting start by the sounds of things.
Yes.
That sounds like a very one of the consistent theme that we've heard over the last couple of the days is, especially in the first couple of years, any experience is good experience, and it's kind of how you apply that. Miranda, if my alphabetical knowledge serves me correct, you're up next. Yeah, it'd be great to hear a little bit about your experiences, and early experiences especially.
Sure. Thank you, Georgie, so much for sharing that. I feel like your route was so intricate and interesting. Mine was 4 weeks into my first year at university. I received an email from the University of Exeter's Law Department saying that Clyde & Co was going to take students out for dinner, and being in my first few weeks of university and quite hungry at that point, I had to apply. But actually during that little application that we did, I started picking up on lots of things about the firm. Its Middle Eastern presence, the transport, huge sector that it does. And I thought, this is really interesting. This is sort of what I'm doing a little bit at the moment, which is contract law in the early modules, but this is actually much more interesting and cool. So that's sort of where I started off. I then became a campus ambassador for the firm in my second year. Just to point out, you can be a campus ambassador for most companies and firms throughout your time at university. So don't be put off that it seems like perhaps a first year role, or even that it specifies second years. So I actually did the role in my third year, but I gained the position in my second year. So I would still, email graduate recruitment of companies and ask, could I apply if you're interested? I then went on and did the vacation scheme in June, and I sat with the construction department, which is part of Clyde & Co's infrastructure sector. And then that was 2 weeks of work experience. And then it was an exit interview. And thankfully, I did get the training contract. So that's my journey.
Great stuff. And I can't pass up this opportunity not to plug On Campus Promotions, our sister company, the brand ambassador. So visit oncampuspromotions.co.uk as well, because quite a lot of the brand ambassador roles are filling fast, particularly in the legal profession, but there is definitely some with other firms and with other industries. So any experience is good experience, we talked about. Right, so Miriam, over to yourself. Same question.
Thank you, Ali. Congratulations, Miranda, on the successful exit interview. I know that could be like very, very stressful. So I guess if we're talking very to be a lawyer, I made a childhood promise when I was 6 years old with my best friend at the time to be lawyers together. So that's kind of where that journey started. And then eventually, actually, we both ended up doing law. So what happened was I went into a law degree kind of without any experience at all. And in my second and third year, I started going to court really often, voluntarily, of course, not under orders or anything. And I started seeing how respected the solicitors were and the barristers, and it was kind of really mesmerizing as a 17, 18-year-old looking at people being, capturing the room with their knowledge. So it was really interesting. And I also attended, Supreme Court hearings, which was really interesting as well, because, you hear about Supreme Court and it's wow. And that you're allowed in there was amazing to see as well. In my second year and my third year, I started doing more placements. So I did a international vacation scheme, is kind of what they called it, with Pinsent Masons in Dubai. And I think that's when I made the decision that I would be a solicitor with 100% of a heart, because it was so, I would say, fun, but because you're being dragged from one department to another, it was so interesting because every single day was very, very different. And they also gave us kind of 3 or 4 days to be with a department of our own choice. So I picked employment, and it was very interesting. I think anyone who ever does employment law knows that it's kind of every single client is completely different and every single client has an interesting story. So it's kind of the department that I related to a little bit the most. So that made my decision with employment law. And then I went and did a 1-week placement with Greenberg Traurig. And I think the location of that really took my attention. It was right in the middle of the Shard. And I did a placement with a senior partner who was in real estate. And that really interested me as well. So I began to kind of focus on real estate and employment law. I picked those as my electives in my third year of my LLB. And then also in my LPC, I picked employment law. And that's kind of what I'm going to work towards, is becoming a solicitor or a trainee solicitor as well in an employment law department or even a real estate law department. And yeah, like I explained, I'm now in student recruitment to help my journey along and get the experience I can. But as Miranda said before as well, or I can't remember who it was, the court experience is really, really interesting. It really helps you solidify exactly what it is you're looking at your future in some kind of form.
Lovely, great story. Thank you, Miriam. And you wanted to be a lawyer at 6, and you've actually, you're well on that journey. I think I wanted to be a footballer. I'm not there. So, oh well, you've actually made your dream. Sarah, same question to yourself.
Thanks. It's been so interesting hearing everybody else's journeys, because as hopefully everybody watching can see, there are so many different routes into this career. I think I actually, relatively to probably everyone on this panel and also to a lot of my peers at the firm that I work at now, prior to joining Simmons, didn't actually have lots and lots of legal specific experience. So I'd really, really echo what Ali and Georgie both said about how every experience is so important. And, you know, you think about the length of your life and your career, it's not always going to be one thing. So definitely good to get a breadth of experience. So I've always been interested in law. My dad actually volunteered as a magistrate when I was younger. So I sometimes went in and just sat, as a few people have said, sat in on court sessions. And I was always, like Miriam mentioned, kind of mesmerised by the academic rigour of it, the theatre. I thought that was really interesting. I also did some sort of just work experience when I was 16. I went and did a couple of weeks at a local solicitor's firm, which was really interesting in criminal law, and did a couple of sort of work experience type placements like that when I was kind of 16, 17. I wasn't 100% sure that I wanted to be a lawyer as a job, which is why I didn't study it as my undergraduate. I decided just to study something I enjoyed, which was languages, and then, you know, knowing that converting was always going to be an option. And I would note that there's no real difference in terms of recruitment between people that do a law degree and people that don't and convert. So I wouldn't let that put you off deciding whatever you want to do in the short term versus the long term. Even when I was at university, a lot of my work experience, I tried so many different things. I did work experience in marketing, in PR. I worked for charities and NGOs, and lots of it was really interesting, but I always just kept in my mind kind of coming back to law. I don't think I really realized until my third year that I was really interested in it. And through that kind of process, I then did a week's work experience at an employment law firm in London, Team Employment. We love that Miriam's also on that journey. And that was pretty much all the legal experience that I had before I actually started applying. Did a whole year of applying, got rejected from absolutely everywhere, and then tried again in my fourth year. And here we are now. So very little, actually very specific law experience, but lots of experience in other things, like I say, marketing, PR, and also just sort of random jobs here and there, working for an estate agent. So I would really echo that point of just, it's not the exact experience you have, but how you use that and the skills that you gain.
Amazing. Thank you for your updates, everyone, and your stories are really good. To the point where, so I don't know how it's got to this point, we're at 18 minutes past 1. So I just have to keep an eye on that. So I'm interested, we talked about the first step sometimes being the hardest, and between you, there must be so much work experience that you've had. So if two very short questions, if you give your kind of overview of it. One, how did you actually get the work experience? What did you go to do it? And then how did you then convert that to a great story that you could tell the employers where you are at the moment? So, Georgie.
So if I look back to my work experience I did in the insurance company that I worked for, that was just, I applied for a summer job to work in the team that answered the phones and, you know, logged all the insurance queries and things like that. So nothing, you know, law related, nothing glamorous about it. But from that, I managed to just in the canteen, just casually bump into someone and start talking to them, and you know, and they were chatting to me about my degree and what I was doing, and you know, while I was here for the summer. And it's just, you know, it's a job at the end of the day, and it's experience that you will get lots of transferable skills from. And so from just talking to them, that was how I managed to get my foot in the door to then actually work upstairs. And, you know, that was my first bit of kind of like in-house legal experience, where I just got it from talking to someone over, you know, lunch in the canteen. So there's nothing, I think it's all about taking every experience that you have, gaining as many skills as you can from it, and they will resonate in your applications and everything like that, but also not taking for granted how one conversation could open up many doors for you as well. So I think it's important to remember that everyone you're speaking to, they might know someone, or they might be that person who can actually really help you, which I think is part of the reason why when I was applying for my vacation scheme, that experience was really useful and beneficial in my applications, and especially my one at DLA.
I think it's such a good message to take advantage of every situation, and networking and random almost conversations that have led to a whole career. So well done you. My colleague actually, just as an aside, flashed up a sign saying, should we have an extra 10 minutes? So I'm very up for it. There's a few nods on there. I know you're all busy and you've also got work to do. So do not worry if at 1:30 you need to jump off, and obviously the students as well who are listening in, hopefully you can join us for an extra 10. But that would be great, and that buys us a bit more time to actually hear some of your stories. So Miranda, I guess same question to you.
I think Georgie's honestly summarised it so well. I think it's about thinking about, in your role, if it's a committee role or a charity role, asking yourself, what can I do to maximise what I'm doing or contribute? So an example is last summer, there was a cafe across the road from me being built, and I just walked by and was friendly and said, welcome to the area, essentially. And they said, oh, do you want to do, some painting, some art? And I mean, of course, I didn't mind doing it, and I very much enjoyed it. But then I sort of realised that they were new to the area, and it was during COVID. They'd just come out of COVID trying to start a new business up, and they didn't have any marketing budget or anything. And I thought, what could I add? And I haven't done marketing, and I'm not a social media expert, but I went online and I looked at some other big social media pages that were relevant, such as Help Local London or something along the lines of that. And they had about 16,000 followers each. And I wrote to both of these individuals who ran these accounts and explained the story of the cafe, got asked to take nice photographs of the staff, and kind of connected the two. And they agreed that the multiple Instagram pages agreed to share that. And I think it reached over 50,000 people in total. So it sort of makes me smile, because I know that I've done something which it's tangible for a firm, but it was actually quite simple. So sometimes it's just about thinking about what you're currently doing, and can you do something that gives you a little bit of a tangible statistic and helps you write something impressive on the application, but actually isn't sort of a huge, it didn't really require like an application myself, that role, or something along those lines. So hopefully that makes sense.
Sounds like you applied yourself though, so well done, and yeah, a great response off the back of it. So thank you, Miranda. And Miriam, same question to yourself.
Yeah, those are really interesting stories. I guess I would say the main one I would say was my international vacation scheme. The way I kind of applied for that one is realizing my own skills. So it was in Dubai, and obviously that's an Arabic speaking company, and I'm Arabic speaking, but it's not something that I consider as a skill because I've done it my whole life. So it's kind of just part of me. So when I applied, I kind of was like, okay, this is a skill that I have, and it's all about finding out more about yourself and as much as yourself that you might not know. So it might be helpful to ask people around you as well, from careers advisors to friends, like, what do you think my skills are? Because sometimes it's very often that you don't realize it yourself. So when I eventually got to Dubai and I said, what was it about my application that made you pick me? Because obviously I'd want that to resonate in my other applications. So they said, well, it's your language skills and things like that. And I said, oh, well, that wasn't even a skill that I considered. It's just something I've done my whole life, is speak Arabic. So it's sometimes things that you don't realize that are the biggest things that stand out in your application. So I would say make use of everything that you know about yourself and find out what other people are saying as well.
Such good messages from you all. Thank you very much, Miriam. And Sarah?
Yeah, I agree. Really great messages. I think in terms of how I got my work experience, law and non-law related, I think Georgie made the point perfectly, so I won't labour that too much. But the only thing I would add is that you know so many people in your life, whether that's your friends, your family, careers advisors at school, just your teachers at school, everyone that you meet at university. Just ask people what it is that they do, what their parents do, what their friends do. There are always opportunities to say, like, for example, I only got the job at the estate agent because my mum worked at a different branch of that estate agent. So she helped me get that job. And I wouldn't have had that without her. And I also got some PR experience because a friend of mine at university, her aunt ran a PR consulting company in London. So I would always just say, just tap all the resources that you can, that are the people in your life. And it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't even necessarily need to be law experience, like I've said. Just always ask around. And in terms of how you can translate that then into your applications for vacation schemes or training contracts, I would always just say my top tip, and something I wish I'd done the first time round, was be targeted in your approach. Really research the firms. Don't just go like scattergun and I just applied to hundreds, and they were probably terrible applications because I spent not enough time on them. But also, if you want to say that you have a skill in something or that you have experience in something, don't just state that, always use an example. So really back that up with the experiences that you've had. So I am capable of working in a professional environment as shown by, X months of working in this estate agent and dealing with clients. So always use those examples that you've had and put them into your applications.
Amazing, thank you, Sarah. And I guess on the journey now, let's actually think about you've all had recent and relevant experience working within law firms. So it'd be good to know about that, because I'm guessing a lot of the people who are watching on, that's where they're aspiring to be. So give us a bit of an overview of what it's like within the most recent legal roles that you've had, and any bit of insight to anyone watching on. So again, Georgie, let's start with you.
Are we going with the trading contract experience or pre-trading contract experience?
Very good question, Georgie. And the answer would be whatever you think is most relevant. Yeah, I guess I just want to give the audience a bit of a flavour of what it's like to work in a law firm. So whatever you think is most relevant.
If you don't mind, I'm going to just draw on my family law experience as well, because I think it's quite different to what I'm doing now. And one thing that I would say is that what we've discussed is all experience is good experience. And I wasn't sure whether personal law was really for me or whether I was more going down the business route. And although I worked out probably within 6 months of that year placement, it was honestly some of the best experience I've ever had. It was with a small high street law firm, which is very different to DLA. But my exposure was huge in the sense that I was meeting with clients, running my own files with my supervisor, writing statements, attending court. So, a lot of people want to get experience at really big companies, commercial firms, but you can actually get really, really good experience at small high street firms who are willing to give you the opportunity to kind of prove yourself and, get really heavily involved. So I think although family law wasn't for me, I have learned a tremendous amount of, skills, and I had a tremendous amount of experience from doing it. So I would really, I just say don't close any doors too early on, get that experience and see what it's like. In terms of my more recent experience, so obviously I'm a trainee at DLA Piper. I am 2 seats in. It's been challenging, as probably anyone can guess, doing a training contract and then obviously doing it virtually as well. But there is a vast amount of kind of tasks that I'm given, the different types of work that I've been asked to do. I've done 2 seats, one in construction litigation. I'm just about to finish my project seat and then move to restructuring. So the kind of experiences that you get within difference of litigation and transactional as well has been really exciting for me. So I think, it kind of goes back to as well, when it comes to seats, you can get a lot out of it, even if it's something that you decide that you don't want to do. I've been fortunate that I've liked my seats, but not everyone does. So all experience that you can get, whether that be in an area of law that you're not sure that's for you or in a seat preference that you didn't want, it's all an incredible experience. And the amount of transferable skills you can get from it are, invaluable to the rest of your career, really.
Yeah, thank you so much, Georgie, for drawing on those 2 experiences. Really useful, and again, really good messages out to anyone watching on. So Miranda, yeah, over to you. I guess the question is just to give a bit of a glimpse of what it's like actually working in a law firm.
Sure. So I did my vacation scheme from my living room, so it was definitely a little bit different than I'm sure what some of the other people on the school have experienced. But it still felt incredibly busy, and sometimes you did forget you were at home until a family member walked in and you think, what are they doing there? So I would describe the vacation scheme as a combination of genuinely enjoyable, exciting, busy, and a little bit tiring as well. There was a combination of commercial and legal tasks, lots of research tasks. I would just like to reassure anyone listening who hasn't done law that I didn't find my law degree I didn't find it something that I needed to do the task, just because they were very commercial focused, very research focused. And even I think I did 2 legal tasks. I was pinpointed which acts, which statute, which law to look at. So I wasn't completely in the dark. And Clyde & Co is a firm where I did feel genuinely comfortable from day one, sort of asking, could I please just clarify the deadline for that piece of work, or could I clarify which part of the act I should be looking at, or have I just understood that correctly? So I'd also say there will be bits which are a little bit uncertain, and that's to be expected, but not to be scared of. So that was my experience within the firm.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it must be so strange starting something like that and obviously working from home during it. So hats off to everyone who's done that, making the most of it. Miriam, yeah, talk me through your experiences at any one of the number of law firms or at University of Law.
Yeah, definitely. So I've had the law experience quite a bit of time ago now, but I think it's pretty much what Miranda said. It's a lot of everything and anything. There was a lot of sitting in client meetings. There was taking notes for the partners just during the meetings, so that they, one of the partners said, could you come into the meeting with me and then take the notes on what is being said so that I can contribute and focus on talking, and then you can give me the notes from the meeting. I did draft emails and witness statements. There was a big case going on at the time, so they needed the witness statements sorted into kind of categories of what the witnesses were talking about. So I did that. I did updating a contract because the UAE law had been changed in the year that I went there. So they said, could you update this employment contract to be corresponding with the new law? So it's just a bit of everything, and then a lot of research projects, like Miranda said. It's a lot of that as well. They kind of make use of the fact that you're a young student and give you a lot of the research projects. So that's what I did a lot of as well in the other law firm in London. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you, Miriam. Sarah.
Yeah, I would agree with everything that everyone said in terms of the range of things you can get involved in. My training contract experience has been that the kind of work you do really depends on what department you're in, and it can really vary. So my first 6 months in corporate, we had relatively few research tasks. It was much more hands-on, working with documents, a lot more sort of ad hoc type tasks. Whereas in employment, because the law is always changing, there's quite a lot of research that goes on with that. I would say similarly, like client contact can vary from group to group. But I think that generally speaking, if you go into a firm, they have a hierarchy. And I don't mean that in a nasty way. I mean that in that there are lots of layers of support, which is really great. So normally you'll be working in a team which has, 2 or 3 people that are like several steps ahead of you, whether that's associate or supervising associate or partner, whatever that might be. So there are always people you can ask questions to, and work kind of gets filtered down through that. And then when you complete work, it will always be then reviewed by people as well that can give you feedback on what you've done well and what you can improve. So I would say from that perspective, it's really great for learning. And I would also say that working in a law firm, generally my experience has been that there's a lot of training, ongoing training that happens, whether that's keeping up to date with the firm's systems or where know-how is changing in terms of the law or market practice. You quite often will be given training. So definitely the kind of thing where as a vac schemer or as a trainee, you're not expected to know everything. And it's just a case of trying to go in like a sponge and soak up as much as you can, ask as many questions as you can, because there's always somebody there to answer the questions for you.
Thank you very much. I'm just, I had half an eye on the Q&A coming through as well. So probably sounds like a good opportunity to ask a couple of questions from that as well. So thank you all, everyone who's put some questions in, and as per, there's some really great ones in here. So maybe we'll start off with, so there's a specific one from Tegan, but I think it's a really good one. And I'm sure it's something that everyone's had in their time. So Tegan says, thanks for all your experiences. Addresses it to Sarah, but I guess everyone might be able to have a take on it. How did you stay motivated despite initial vac scheme rejections that you mentioned? So yeah, any advice on how you get through those if you're firing off a lot of applications and, as happens, get some rejections? Yeah,
that's a really good question, Tegan. Definitely. It is a hard process, and I think it's the same applying for any job. It's definitely something where when you get knocked down, it can knock your confidence. And I think that's just normal and natural. So I think, first of all, when that happens, don't feel bad about yourself that you're feeling bad. It's normal to be disappointed, and you have every right to be disappointed if you are rejected from something, which hopefully you won't be, but it does happen. I think the thing that kept me motivated was just, I sort of had to remind myself that your life isn't a race. And this is something that I really had to keep telling myself, and I would really tell my younger self if I could, is that you're going to have however many years in a career. You don't have to pick one thing and stick to that one thing for the whole of your life. You can change. There are going to be so many opportunities. And sometimes it's easy to look around you and think, oh, other people are further ahead of me, or oh, they only had to do 10 applications before they got a job, or whatever it is. But I think just remembering that you're on your path, you know what you want. And I think as long as you're comfortable in the knowledge that you're doing everything that you can, then just to remind yourself that it's not a race, and not to put that extra pressure on yourself, and just to work as hard as you can on each application, slow down. Quite often you can get kind of caught up in it, and that adds to the pressure as well. I think just slow down, put everything you can into each application, and know you can hold your head high, that if it doesn't work out that time, it's not because of anything you did wrong.
Yeah, such good advice. Yeah, and I guess that there is you might send out more applications if you're getting some rejections, and that is not always the right thing to do. You know, as you say, like put time and effort into it and really make it count, the ones that you do put in. So thank you so much, Sarah. Anyone else want to elaborate on any of that? We also got some other great questions we can come back to as well. So anyone want to elaborate? Okay, a really good question we got here. So we've kind of touched about what life is like in a firm from your experiences. So Danielle, thank you very much for this. So Danielle's talking about the work-life balance and the social life when you're working for a firm. So does anyone want to talk through those aspects? Miranda's hand up.
I've only done 2 weeks. So I do take what I'm saying with a pinch of salt because I haven't done 2 years plus. But I actually was so impressed by my supervisor because he said, I don't expect you to be working on the weekend. You should be using that time for yourself or something you'd like to be doing. And that's just not a sort of attitude that I expected to encounter in this big commercial corporate world. And additionally to that, at the end of the week, he said, I know you've got your interview coming up. So, you know, if there's any deadlines that you think you want to submit stuff after the vacation scheme, I'm more than happy for you to do that. And I think that flexibility, that open-mindedness, and that also awareness that the interview was really important and quite nerve-wracking. So there was that awareness that other people at Clyde & Co had, and I'm sure it's similar at the firms currently being represented. So again, work-life balance is something that I really did pick up on and stood out to me.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Miranda. Yeah, and Sarah and Georgia, you're both kind of a couple of seats into where you are at the moment. So yeah, have you got an experience of work-life balance, social life? I guess both of you also working quite a lot during a pandemic as well, which is an experience that wasn't a thing a year and a half ago.
Yeah, so work-life balance for me at DLA has always, I'd say, been relatively balanced, in the sense that there are times that you will be required to work later and the firm will need your support and assistance, but that goes for the territory of any job that you do. That isn't limited to being a trainee. But there are also opportunities where they want you to, if you're quieter, maybe a couple of days, or they want you to kind of work on things that are important to you outside of work. So that might be pro bono opportunities, you know, that might be related to, I do a lot of environmental climate change work. So they give me the opportunity to get really heavily invested in that, which was really important for me. In, you know, with a work-life balance, you know, it's important to get involved in the things that, you know, are important to you. Social aspect has been, I mean, in person fairly limited, and I imagine it's the same for Sarah, I'm not sure, but we haven't really had the opportunity to do big gatherings, or gatherings at all really together. It's, you know, it's very limited at the moment, but we did in my first seat do wine tasting, we did cocktail evenings, we'd have general kind of just events in the diary to catch up, kind of what you would generally do if you were in the office, just to go over someone's desk. They put some time in the diary where people would drop in and out of the session to have kind of a social with each other. My experience on the vacation scheme was very different. It was very much in the day we were doing, you know, working together as groups, having talks, but in the evenings we had a lot of time to socialise with each other and get to know each other, which I think was really important for when I started my training contract, to have a bit of a support network behind me, considering no one was in the office. So, you know, the benefit of having the social aspect in the vacation scheme has really supported me with the colleagues that I have and the friends that I have now to kind of get me through the times where we're all sat at home, been working. But we are getting back to a bit of normality. So hopefully at some point soon, we'll have some social events and, with our teams and other fellow trainees and other officers as well.
Yeah, thank you for that. And let's hope, fingers crossed, that people who are watching, who are about to maybe start something relatively soon, will have the best of both, like an element of flexi working, an element of office as well. I'm very conscious of time, Sarah. I'd love to come to you about that question, but maybe to all of you, very quickly, I'll just ask you one final question. And I guess that would be, what are your top tips for anyone watching to help get a career in the legal profession? So let's go in alphabetical order, as we did last time. Start with you, Georgie.
My top tip would be to take any experience and, whether that's law or non-law, and make the most of it. Always think about the transferable skills that you can gain from it and kind of the tasks that you're given and how you can explain that in an application. And any experience, not just law experience, is great experience. And always think about how you can portray yourself in your applications based on that.
So much good advice. Thank you, Georgie. Miranda, try and beat that one.
Oh, no. I'll just pretend to have an ICT difficulty. No, I think that something that I would do with the application season opening is pick out some stories in the news around the world that you're interested in, maybe 3, that have links to some of the firms that you're applying to. Put it on a Word document, have it as a running Word document. I created Google Alerts under the names, which means you constantly get emails through. And just every time you learn something new at an event or from someone else, especially if you can quote them, put it in there. And then by the time you get to your applications, you will have these stories to be able to talk about. And hopefully it also gives you an idea of the type of work that you're, the type of commerce, the type of global stories that interest you. And I think those should be the firms, they're clearly where your strengths are, where your interest is, and those should be the type of firms that you apply to. So hopefully that's useful with September and October coming up.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, it sounds like you're very organised and using technology as well to help you be organised. Lovely stuff, Miranda. Miriam?
Yes, so I guess from a student recruitment point of view, I would say stay organised, just like Miranda says. Make sure you go to the firms that you have your eye on and look at their calendars. When are their open days, events, networking things, attend them all. I think a really good point as well is if you have some firms that you have your eye on, find some partners in there, find some trainee solicitors, get on LinkedIn and connect and talk to them. And what did you do in your application that made you successful, and what are you looking for in an application? Also, it's really useful if you speak to graduate recruitment for that firm. Most of them are very, very open and happy to talk to you about your application and even talk you through the application. Sometimes if you just approach it with confidence and ask them what is it you're looking for in the application when you're receiving them. Some of them might say, okay, well, we're looking for these skills and we're looking for you to answer it in these ways. And so it's very, very useful for networking as well, to make sure that you have some advice points from the firm itself. I know that loads of unis offer some careers advice, but it's extra helpful if you just approach the firm, approach graduate recruitment and say, I'm interested, I want to apply, how can I be successful? It really boosts your application as well, because if a firm reads an application that has some kind of relatability to the firm itself, it's always very helpful. Look at the firm's values, look at things like that. That's from a recruitment point of view, I think. That helps.
You've been on both sides now, haven't you? So you can see how it works. And yeah, final person to ask, Sarah, give us your top tips.
I think all the very sort of like organization and like the key points to hit have been mentioned, and they all really, I agree with everything that everyone said. So the only sort of maybe slightly different thing that I would say is don't forget to, and don't be afraid to put a little bit of you into your application. It's very tempting when you apply to think, oh gosh, this is big faceless firm and they're all like machines that just work all day, all night, and they're all incredible and they're looking for a very particular kind of person. So I have to like play a role in my application. I would say that's not the case. You know, when you, kind of like Georgie's touched on, law firms today are so much more than just clients and billable hours. Like, yes, that's obviously the business, but firms will have their own societies, they have their own networks, they do pro bono work, they have other initiatives. And fundamentally, you want to be a person that's going to be working there. So put something of you into your application, something you enjoy, something, whether it's, you know, like Miranda said, things that you're interested in, you know, within the world of business or law, or even if it's just an interest, like a sport that you do that's taught you something, like teamwork or perseverance. Put something that shows who you are into your applications.
Such a good range of advice from all of you, so thank you so much. It's been really, really useful for myself to hear what you've said. Some amazing stories, you've done some amazing things, and I'm not surprised you are where you are today. So thank you all of you for joining us, and also for giving us an extra 15 minutes. I really appreciate that, and hopefully all the students who are watching on do as well. To the students, thank you so much for taking part in everything on the main stage. This is the last main stage activity we're going to do over the couple of days now, but please do join the employer booths, ask some questions, and utilise some of the advice that you've just heard from the panellists today. So in terms of the main stage, that draws the day to a close, but there's hopefully a lot more conversation still to have. So thank you very much for joining us, everybody, and hopefully we'll see you at a similar event soon. Take care.